Hi, happy Wednesday. I am Courtney with Holistic Homesteaders Healing and Wellness. I just want to thank you all for all of the follows and helping our page grow. I love receiving all the messages and comments about how educational our page has been for you. Upon reaching our 5,500 follower goal for Facebook, I promised an Herbal 101 course. So here is the crash course for Herbal 101. And again, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to Herbal 101. Welcome, everybody. I hope your day is wonderful and I hope all the good things are happening. Today is about building a foundation. We are not trying to memorize hundreds of herbs or diagnose and treat conditions. We are learning how herbalists begin to understand plants and how to approach herbal knowledge responsibly. What is herbalism? Herbalism is the traditional practice of working with plants to support health and well-being. It includes learning to identify plants, understanding their traditional uses, preparing herbs in different ways, understanding how herbs interact with the body, using plants thoughtfully, safely, and respectfully, connecting plants knowledge with food, lifestyle, and wellness. Herbalism is not about finding a miracle herb. It's about learning the plant, understanding the person, and knowing when and when not to use it. Before we start talking about individual herbs, I want to answer the most basic question. What actually is herbalism? Herbalism is the relationship between people and medicinal plants. It includes identifying plants, understanding their traditional uses, learning how to prepare them, and understand how they may affect the body. And one thing I really want beginners to take away today is that herbalism isn't about finding one magic plant that fixes everything. It's about learning. We look at the whole picture, the plant, the preparation, the person, and the circumstances. And just because something is natural doesn't automatically mean it's safe for everyone. And I'm going to repeat that. Just because something is natural doesn't automatically mean it is safe for everyone. Good herbalism includes knowing the limitations of herbs, possible interactions, and when it's appropriate to involve a healthcare professional. Let me ask you, when you hear the word herbalism, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Herbalism versus just taking herbs. Herbalism is more than knowing which herb to take. A herbalist considers the goal isn't to use the most herbs. The goal is to use the right knowledge. The plant. What is it and which part is used? The preparation. Tea, tincture, infused oil, salve, etc. The person. Everyone responds differently. The purpose. What are we trying to support? The dose and duration. More isn't always better. Safety, interactions, contradictions, allergies, pregnancy, medications, and when to seek professional care. This is where I want to separate herbalism from simply looking something up online and taking it. Herbalism involves understanding the plant and the person. Two people can use the same herb and have completely different experiences. I want you thinking beyond what does this herb do and start thinking how is this herb traditionally used? How would I prepare it? And is it appropriate for this person? Where does herbal knowledge come from? Herbal knowledge has been passed down in many ways traditional and ancestral knowledge, generations of observation and practice, Folk herbalism is community knowledge and everyday plant use. Historical text and materia medicia, written records of plants and preparations. Modern research, studying plant compounds, mechanisms, and safety and potential uses. Direct observation, learning how plants grow, change, and behave. Good herbalism respects both tradition and evidence. Herbalism didn't begin in a textbook or a supplement bottle. People have been observing plants and developing relationships with them for generations. Some knowledge was passed down through families and communities. Some was written down, and today we also have modern scientific research that can help us understand what is happening inside of these plants. I think there's value in all of these sources, but we also have to be able to separate traditional use from scientific established evidence. Those aren't always the same thing, and that's something we're going to talk about throughout our herbal journey. The herbalist first skill, observation. Before we use a plant, we learn to see it, identify what is this plant, observe how does it grow, what does it look like, smell or feel like, understand where does it grow and when does it appear, respect, is it safe to handle, harvest, or use, research, what do reliable sources tell us about it. You can't safely work with a plant you can't confidently identify. And I'm going to repeat that. If you do not know what it is with confidence, do not use it. I promise you, you'll only use it once. If you haven't ever seen the movie Into the Wild, that is a great example of plant identification and the consequences. If you have not seen it, it's called Into the Wild and it's on Amazon, and it is a great depiction of um, living off the land and making a fatal mistake with a lookalike. I highly recommend it. One of the biggest mistakes beginners can make is jumping straight to what does this herb do? Before that question comes, what plant am I actually looking at? Learning herbalism starts with observation. Spend time looking at plants. Notice their leaves, stems, flowers, smell, growth patterns, and habitat. Learn their botanical names and their lookalikes. And especially when you're harvesting wild plants, identification isn't something we guess at. If we aren't confident about the plant, do not use it. The whole plant matters. A plant is more than a single active ingredient. Different parts of a plant can have different properties and uses. Even the same plant can be used differently depending on the part, the preparation, and the purpose. Roots are often prepared as decoctions. Leaves, commonly used for teas and infused preparations. Flowers, often delicate and suited to infusions. Seeds and berries can have very different constituents and uses. Bark and stems may require different preparation methods. This is an important concept because you may hear someone say, this herb is good for this. But we have to ask, which part of the plant and how is it prepared? A root and a leaf from the same plant aren't necessarily interchangeable. Some plant parts are more concentrated. Some require different extraction methods, and some parts may not be appropriate to be used at all. As we go through our herbs today, I want you to start thinking about the plant as a whole rather than memorizing a list of uses. How do we prepare herbs? The preparation should match the plant part, and the intended use. Preparation changes how we work with a plant. Infusion. Hot water steeped over delicate plant material. Deconcoction is plant material gently simmered, often roots, bark, and tougher parts. A tincture. Herbs extracted in alcohol, glycerin, or other menstruum, like apple cider vinegar. Sorry, tripping over words. Infused oil. Plant material extracted into a carrier oil, things like hemp oil or grapeseed oil or things of that nature. Salve is infused oil combined with a wax, typically beeswax, to create a topical preparation. Fresh plant preparation, sometimes used when fresh material is preferred. Knowing an herb isn't enough. We also need to understand how to prepare it. A delicate flower doesn't necessarily need the same treatment as a tough root. Today we're going to keep this introductory. Later, especially in our subscriber preparation class, we'll actually get into making these preparations and talk about why we choose one method over another. For Herbal 101, I want you to remember one thing. How you prepare an herb can change what you extract from that plant. Fresh versus dried herbs. Now, this slide's a little wonky, so just bear with me. Both fresh and dried herbs have a place in herbalism, okay? This is something you'll hear a lot in herbalism. Fresh versus dried. People sometimes assume fresh automatically means more powerful, but it's not that simple. Fresh plants contain their natural moisture, while drying removes that water and concentrates the plant material by weight. Some herbs are wonderful fresh, while others are much easier to work with dried. So instead of asking, is fresh better, we ask, which form makes the most sense for this particular herb in preparation? So your fresh herbs are going to have a higher water content, and they're best used promptly, or they need to be preserved properly because they will mold and they will wilt and then they will be no good. Dried herbs have a longer shelf life, they're easier to store, and more concentrated by weight. Fresh herbs can also be convenient for teas and many other preparations, just the same as dried. So when you're making something, any preparations, you're going to want to use more fresh than you do dried herbs because of the moisture in them. All right. So going forward, and we can get deeper into this, but that's a subscriber class. A little herbal safety goes a long way. Natural does not automatically mean harmless. I'm going to repeat that again. Natural does not automatically mean harmless. Before using an herb, consider, when in doubt, pause, research, and ask a qualified professional. This matters because medicines and supplements could have possible interactions. Pregnancy and breastfeeding, some herbs may not be appropriate. Some herbs can have dire consequences. You understand? Allergies and sensitivities, dose and frequency. More is not always better. Age and individual circumstances. Existing health conditions, and then when a medical professional is needed. There is a time and place for both holistic medicine, and there's a time and place for allopathic medicine. We're not here to step on each other's toes. They really need to be respectful of one another because there is a time and place when allopathic medical intervention is absolutely necessary. You understand? I always want safety to be a part of herbal education. We aren't here to be afraid of plants, but we also shouldn't assume that because something grows in the ground, it's automatically safe, because that is not the case. Herbs contain biologically active compounds. These compounds are part of why herbs can be useful, but they're also why herbs can interact with medications or be inappropriate for certain people. One of the most important skills you can develop as a herbalist is knowing when not to use something and knowing when a situation belongs with a healthcare professional. Learning herbs, don't memorize the list. Instead of asking, what is this herb good for? Start asking, what do I know about this plant? And for each herb, learn the common name and the botanical name. Learn how to identify it, which parts of the plant are used, major constituents and traditional actions, common preparations, safety considerations and interactions, what tradition says and what research tells us. Herbalism is a skill that you build, not a list that you memorize. We are constantly learning all the time. I don't understand when there is beef between herbalists because there's something we can all learn from each other. And same with allopathic medicine, same with that stranger just walking down the street, Um, you may have knowledge that I am not yet aware of, and I have knowledge that you are not yet aware of. So we're constantly building, constantly learning, and it's not a list that you're going to memorize. There's far too many plants, far too many parts, far too many different things at play here to sit there and try to memorize every little thing. It is okay to admit that you don't know something right off the top of your head and you have to look it up or double check or get with somebody. All right? This is probably one of the biggest differences between learning herbalism and just collecting herbal facts from social media. I could sit here and share herbal facts all day long. Same as the next person, same as the next person. It's same as yourself. You can memorize 100 herbs and their supposed uses, but that doesn't necessarily mean you know herbalism. You want to learn how to think about plants. When you encounter an herb, you should know what questions to ask. What is it? What part are we using? How do we prepare it? What are the traditional uses? What does evidence say? And most importantly, is it appropriate and safe? Is it appropriate and safe? You hear me? Once you learn that process, you can apply it to almost any plant you encounter. Herbalism is a relationship with plants. Herbalism isn't just about using plants, it's about knowing them, growing them, observe them, study them, harvest respectfully, learn how to prepare them, understand their traditional uses, and using them responsibly. The more you learn about a plant, the more you realize there is to learn. This is really the heart of what I want Herbal 101 to be. I don't want us to look at plants as products sitting on a shelf. I want us to understand that these are living things that have been a part of human foodways, traditions, and healing practices for generations. When you grow a plant, watch it change through seasons. Learn how to identify it, eventually learn how to work with it. Your relationship with that plant changes. That's the foundation we're going to build in this class. Meet today's herbs. Today we're getting to know 4 plants. Cleavers, a sticky spring-growing herb traditionally used in lymphatic and urinary support. Passionflower, a climbing vine traditionally used for relaxation and a nervous system support. Mugwort, a aromatic herb with a long history in traditional herbal practices and preparations. This is a dream herb. Comfrey, a traditional topical herb known for its use in external preparations. Today isn't about memorizing everything these plants can do. You're learning how to look at an herb through an herbalist's eyes. Now we're going to take everything we've just talked about and actually apply it. These are four plants we're focusing on today: Cleavers, Passionflower, Mugwort, and Comfrey. Many of you may already know these plants, and some of you may be seeing them for the first time. We're going to briefly touch on each of them, as this is an introductory class, and we'll discuss them in doing so. But we are going to do a more hands-on demonstration within the subscriber group for each of these that I have on hand. I don't want you leaving here thinking you have to memorize 4 giant lists of herbal actions. I want you to leave understanding how to approach an herb and how to learn about it. That's what Herbal 101 is really about. Herb number 1 is Cleavers. Herbalist observation. If you ever walked through the woods and came out covered in a plant that wouldn't let go, you may have met Cleavers, also known as goosegrass, catchweed, stickyweed. You can recognize it by the long, slender stems, whorls of narrow leaves, tiny flowers, tiny hooked hairs that make it cling to clothing and other plants, often found scrambling through other vegetation. Traditional uses, it's traditionally associated with lymphatic and urinary support, often used as a fresh plant preparation, commonly prepared as a juice, tea, or tincture. Its botanical name is Gallium aparin, and I may very well have butchered that. And you may know it as, again, as gooseweed, catchweed, or stickyweed. This is one of those plants that is much easier to recognize once you've actually handled it because of those little hooked hairs. Cleavers has a long history in traditional herbalism, particularly around the lymphatic and urinary support, as I mentioned. One thing that makes cleavers interesting is that it's commonly worked with as a fresh herb, particularly when it's young and actively growing. When you're learning plants, don't just memorize what they're for. Look at the plant, feel it, notice how it grows. Those observations help you actually remember it. Next is one of my favorites, Passionflower. This is Passiflora incarnata, and you may also hear it called maypop. It's a really interesting vine, especially when you see the flowers. It has a long history of traditional use, particularly around relaxation and calming. We're not going to get into all the preparations and medicinal details today. We're simply getting acquainted with these plants and learning why herbalists have paid attention to them for generations. And if you have passion flower growing around you, I definitely encourage you to take some time to actually observe the plant. The flowers are absolutely incredible. Sometimes a plant's story is just as interesting as its traditional uses. It's a native vine and it has a fascinating history. It's known for its unusual, intricate flowers. It's a vigorous climbing vine, traditionally associated with calm and relaxation, commonly used in teas and other herbal preparations, and it's native to southeastern United States. I'm in Louisiana and I have one growing outside, but it is not currently blooming. All right. Our third herb today is mugwort. It's aromatic, it's ancient, it's often misunderstood. The lesson here is that common names matter, but botanical names matter more. It's a member of the Artesima genus. Known for its distinctive aromatic scent, it has a long history of traditional herbal practices, traditionally used in a variety of preparations, and different species have been used by different cultures. We're keeping this one light today. I mainly want you to recognize mugwort as a plant with a long herbal history. Understand that there is a lot more to learn about it than what we can cover in this Herbal 101 class. Our fourth herb is comfrey, Symphynthium officinale, a traditional herb with a long history of external use. The herbal lesson for this one is knowing an herb also means knowing its limitations. A member of the borage family, known for its beautiful purple, pink, or white bell-shaped flowers, its large, somewhat fuzzy leaves, and traditionally used in topical herbal preparations, historically used in preparations such as poultices and salves. Comfrey has a very long traditional history in herbalism, again, mainly in external preparations. It's one of those plants that has a fascinating history, but it also deserves respect when we're talking about how it is used. And we're not going to get into all the preparation details today because it's something we can explore much more thoroughly with our subscriber group and in in-person classes. For Herbal 101, I just want you to recognize the plant. And know that it has a long history in herbalism, and understand that responsible herbalism includes learning both traditional uses and safety considerations. I tripped over words there, but the point is it has uses, but it also has limitations, and it's important to know this. And that goes with any herb. What do these four herbs teach us? Our herbs are very different, but that's the point. Cleavers teaches us to notice the ordinary plants around us. Passionflower reminds us that beautiful plants can have a long herbal history. Mugwort teaches us why plant identification and botanical names matter. Comfrey reminds us that traditional herbs deserve respect and safety awareness. Herbalism isn't just about knowing plants, it's about learning how to learn plants. Each of these are completely different, and each one teaches us something about herbalism. That's really what I want you to take away from today's class: curiosity. You don't have to become an herbalist overnight. Start by learning one plant at a time. Where do we go from here? Herbalism is a journey, not a checklist. Start with one plant at a time. Learn to identify it. Learn its history and traditional uses. Learn appropriate preparations. Learn its safety considerations. Grow or observe plants whenever you can. Today's four herbs are just the beginning. If today was your first real introduction into herbalism, don't feel like you need to walk away knowing everything. Pick one plant that interests you and start there. Learn what it looks like. Learn its botanical name. Learn how people have used it traditionally. Learn how it's prepared and what the safety considerations are. Then move to another plant. That's how herbal knowledge grows. One plant, one observation, one lesson at a time. And that's exactly what we're going to continue to do together. Your Herbalism Challenge. I want to give you something simple to take away from today's class. Choose one of these four herbs and spend a little time getting to know it. Don't just Google what is this herb good for. Actually learn the plant. Look at pictures. If you have access to the plant, observe it, learn its botanical name and a little of its history, and then come back and tell me what you discovered, because herbalism becomes much more fun when we're learning together. Questions and conversation. What did you learn today? I would like to hear from you. Which of these four herbs caught your attention the most? Maybe you've grown one. Maybe you've seen one without knowing it. Or maybe you've never heard of them before. Tell me in the comments. And if there's something about herbalism you've always wanted to understand, this is your chance to ask. Some of the questions you asked today may even help me decide what classes we cover in the future. Again, thank you all for sitting through this. I hope you learned something valuable. And thank you for supporting Holistic Homesteaders Healing and Wellness. We love you, and y'all have a great day.